Hi, Dr. Steinkraus. I hope you're doing well in Florida. I'm a little jealous that it's 80 some odd degrees. Well, I'm stuck in here in New Hampshire and it's 50 something degrees, but it's only going to get better. It's the end of April. It's almost May. So we're here to talk about Sheriff Akin's video, and he gave a lot of his background, which is always nice to hear a police officer open up. You could tell he was probably involved in a lot of community policing because of um, just how he could express his background. He wasn't didn't hold everything in to himself and kind of have that type of personality. But so he talked about how he's the son of a single parent with a brother who had cognitive disabilities, and he was homeless at 8. For a couple of years, he was eating from dumpsters, and then he lived with his grandparents, and he started working at 12. So I started thinking, based on your question of how did this affect his leadership methods, and I would say, it probably led towards probably a lot more compassion, having a brother with disabilities, and then some, especially having been homeless himself and looking at how to solve problems on his own, and probably a lot of independence. I'm assuming his mom was probably working while he was at school and maybe not always there when he got home. So I was thinking, I'm sure he had to have a lot of perseverance, but he probably also learned to serve others since his brother has cognitive disabilities. He seemed really humble in his interview, which I'm sure he picked that up from growing up and not getting his high school diploma, and not having to go back for his GED after he was turned down for the Army, where it seemed like he thought everybody just got in, the way he described it. So and he seemed compassionate because of the way he talked about his department and his how he treated even his subordinates in the department, of how he was trying to surround himself with good people. So you again asked a question about positive negatives in a police organization with an elected official. I would say that it's kind of a double-edged sword, where he might be a little too focused on the community because maybe he wants to get reelected, but at the same time, he's got to keep his guys happy and his girls happy. So he's probably a little more torn than a police chief who's appointed to a position would be, where the elected official is more probably focusing on the community rather than the guys. But that's probably such a tough line to walk between the two, where you don't get too power hungry and say, "Oh, I just need to get elected and I have to appease the community and not helping my people." But he seemed like he had a good grasp on both in that aspect. And then you'd asked, how do you think your background will be consequential in my leadership? I know from having been in leadership, I know my sports from when I was younger helped out, just being a part of a team and taking direction from a coach or even captains or whoever. So I know that was a big part of how I could get along in a police department and take direction from supervisors. And I'd say college helped out, just free thinking wise. But I try to tell people all the time, it didn't really help me be a police officer, in the fact that it's really, even the academy gave you the basics. It wasn't until you get on the street that you really learn the job. So, and then lastly, some of the traits that would support my growth as a leader, I would say, having done it, I'm going to go forward and say what I learned maybe a little bit from what I had done and what I would do going forward if I got in a leadership position again. I would definitely have more patience, because there were times where I was sometimes the supervisor, maybe because I said so, I'd get to that point. But I realized, okay, well, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. As long as it's done satisfactorily, morally, ethically, and you can get it done in your own way, that's however you want to do it, you do it. more compassion. I think I've learned that over the past few years too. I definitely be more compassionate with the guys. There was times where, I look back now and I saw some of the guys maybe struggling, whether it be home life or on the job or what have you. And it was kind of like, oh, just kind of suck it up. You got to be mentally tough in this job and just kind of suck it up. Um, and I also learned a lot of what not to do from my mistakes, but also other supervisors. So I think going forward, it would help me become a better leader, just knowing what not to do at this point. And I learned from early on, I never wanted to be that guy. Do as I say, not as I do. So I always wanted to lead from the front. And that included on calls. If I went to a call, I didn't want the guys to be the first one in the door in case something happened. But that's a balance. That's a delicate balance too. Sometimes you're better off sitting in the back and just kind of being a director, just helping the guys out wherever they need your help instead of being at the forefront. So that's a balance too. But I'd say overall, I learned a lot from being a supervisor, and I could also learn a lot going forward from the mistakes that I made. So I hope those answered all your questions, and enjoy Florida.